Welcome to Don't Quote Her. This is season 2, episode 1. It's crazy. Like, I literally can't believe that I'm still doing this. I didn't think that I would make it to like a first, let alone an 11th episode, or I guess, wait, oh my God, no, this is 14. It's been such an interesting ride and such an interesting learning process that I just like, I tell you what, get on social media right now and you see so much content of people like entrepreneurs and whatnot, and people who are just like putting themselves out there, whether it's for content or for healing purposes or, to try and monetize off of it. You see these people, right? And they're like, listen, at the end of the day, like if you wait for things to be perfect, you're going to be waiting forever. Like just do it. Like start putting it out there and then you can perfect it as you go. I cannot fucking tell you guys, like that is so fucking true. Like it's so true. If I would have waited until like the perfect time to start this, and yeah, okay, everyone needs to shut the fuck up. We get it. Not everyone deserves or like needs a podcast or whatever the fuck. I get it. Trust me, I read enough about it in the comments. If you're passionate about something, if it's writing, if it's podcasting, if it's creating content, which is like, I feel like I could do like a whole season on creating content because what the fuck? It doesn't matter. Like whatever you're passionate about, just fucking start. I'm here to tell you right now, just fucking start. You know what? No, of course you're not going to be as good as someone who's been doing it for years, but like just start. That's just my little tidbit of advice. Going into season 2, there's some changes for sure. Like some stuff has been percolating, some stuff's been happening. What's changed? It's one host now. It's just me. It was Brittany and I going into this, and we had a great first season, but now the show is evolving into something that's just me. As the season progresses, I will be having guests. I recorded with my good friend Alec last night, and that was so much fun. He is so ridiculous, but he is awesome. And then, I'll have my sister on, I'll have some other friends on, and we're just gonna sit and just talk shit and talk about whatever the fuck we want to talk about. I think like one thing that we didn't do great in the first season is do deep dives on things. That's definitely going to be happening this season, only it's really going to be, unless I have a guest, it's really just going to be me. So you guys are just going to sit here and listen to me bitch and share my fucking opinion on whatever the fuck I want. So welcome to the show. That being said, something that is staying in season 2 is the unfiltered file. If you're new here, the unfiltered file is basically just like the topic of conversation, right? Like whatever that might be. Today's unfiltered file is all about friendship. And listen, this is like a girls episode. Men, this is not for you. I'll just say it at the top. This episode is not for you. You can go somewhere else. This episode is for the girlies. Like this episode is for the girls who get it. Like the girls who have girlfriends, the girls who have like that core group of women. That is who this episode is for. Listen, if at any point, like, not that I expect you to be like taking notes in the car or something, but if at any point, like I share something and it like you have a very strong opinion about, like please like find me on Instagram, find me on TikTok, DM me and like share your insight, because since it's just me, I would appreciate it. It gives me something to talk about. But also I'm just curious, like the perspective on it. Like I'm curious, the women would agree with this, if the girlies would agree with this. Because I feel like I nailed it on the head. I want to state like at the top that I am not the epitome of a best friend. I have faults. I'm not perfect. I'm moody and I am judgmental. I definitely have like a weird sense of humor. I don't know if I'd say it's weird, maybe dry. I have a pretty gnarly sense of humor. And to be honest with you, like roasting the people who I care most about is my love language. So that's not always so well received. I'm very picky about who I let in because like I care deep, I love deep, I'm loyal. And with that being said, I also would kind of take things personal. So like I am not perfect. I don't have a problem sharing what the fuck I think in the moment. When if someone says something to me that I don't agree with, doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna come out the way that like it just came out right now. But I don't have a problem sharing my opinion. All that being said, I am a girl's girl. I've always had girlfriends growing up. I always had like a core group of girls. That didn't really fluctuate year to year. It was, just every couple years. I think like as you go into different phases and stages of your life, it kind of evolves. But I've always had female friends surrounding me. Your girlfriends are who teach you about you. They teach you about yourself. They teach you how to treat others. They teach you how to set boundaries. They teach you what it means to show up for someone in a way where you're not necessarily being forced, but rather you're doing it because you care, you love them. So girlfriends, in my personal opinion, have always been essential. Recently, though, a friendship of mine I've had for quite some time came to an end. And ultimately what ended the relationship for me, lack of girl code. Like that small, sometimes long list of things that like you just don't do to another girl that is in your inner circle, or a girl in general, but specifically your inner circle. It's those like codes, like those laws that you go by. And this person lacked that. I really never had like spats like this. And this isn't a spat. Like this is the end of a friendship. With that being said, it was just lack of girl code, like period. That's what it came down to. I think when I really started noticing the lack of girl code, that's kind of when I started speaking up. And that was a couple years ago. And I wasn't necessarily rude about it, but like there were times where it was like, okay, I'm having enough of this. I'm not gonna participate in this conversation and like just let it rock. What kept happening, and what I think like the people around me even noticed, she was incapable of like seeing the bigger picture and seeing how like her actions or lack of affected me, right? One thing that I mean, if you were to ask me even like probably 3-4 years ago, I couldn't say this then, but I definitely like now, the older and wiser that I've gotten, I don't like to get brought out of character, especially like with someone who was like that level of friend to me. I don't like getting brought out of character, and not saying it never happens, but it's one of those things that like when I walk away from that situation, I don't like the feeling that I get. So like when I walked away from this friendship, I wanted to walk away from this like feeling like I had evolved, taking it to the level where like you're being nasty and rude to one another. At least it makes me feel like, oh, so you've been feeling this way all along, and I didn't want to tell her like my innermost thoughts about like who I think she was in that moment or what she did. She wound up texting me a few days later telling me how toxic I was. And when I tell you that like I wanted to drop some fucking bombs in that text thread, I was just like, you know what? You're right. I am toxic. Have a great life. Like, please get the fuck out of my face. You really don't fucking get it. It just speaks to her intelligence level, at that moment. Once I've like come out of the sad cloud, because like, yes, you're allowed to be sad about losing a close friend, and the fog cleared or whatever. I started trying to see things like from her perspective. Like, like once you calm down and you kind of look back on a situation, I started, asking myself questions. I wanted to like figure out the why, which I will say this about myself. And I wasn't always like this either, but I do try and see both sides. Like maybe not in the moment all the time. Like if I'm riled up and like in that moment, I don't have the strength to see it from their perspective. It doesn't mean I don't want to. It just means that like I'm just trying to regulate myself, that I don't even have the wherewithal to like in that moment speak on their perspective, because I can barely speak on my own. Sometimes like when that fog clears and you have like that moment, that's when I really like to think about like, okay, let me see things from their point of view and let me see like what the why could be here. Why wasn't she a better friend? Why didn't she offer her like a helping hand, like in the moment when I was basically like, not basically, when I was asking for help. And why didn't she sacrifice her time and her energy and her routine and things that she had going on to try and help, and I think like to me, the killer about the situation was she knew it. That just kind of made it burn a little bit more. Why? Like I was asking all these fucking questions. And then it hit me. After all of that fucking shit, it hit me. It's because she didn't have a girl code. And I think it's because she didn't and doesn't and never did have like a core group of girlfriends over an extended period of time. It's like she really never has. This is what it is. Like she lacks the girl code. And so what I'm going to talk about today is the motherfucking girl code. So I'm going to list these off and I'm going to give like a little blurb about each. And I am curious if the ladies agree. Like, I'm so curious, like if I'm missing something on this list, because I feel like this is a pretty good list. Okay. Number 1, girl code, mutual loyalty. The rule is, what's said between friends stays between friends. Back each other up publicly, even if there's a disagreement privately. I think this is huge. Loyalty to me is probably like top 3 things. I'm a loyal person. I'm a Taurus, but I'm a loyal ass person. And once it might take a minute. Like, I'm not the most like bubbly, happy-go-lucky, approachable person, but like once you're in, you're in. And I want and expect the same from you. Number 2, girl code, reciprocity. The rule, there should be a balance of giving and receiving, whether that's time, emotional energy, or support. I'm just going to leave that one right there. Number 3, non-competition in core areas. The rule, support each other's wins instead of comparing and competing, especially around relationships, appearance, or career. I feel like, and I'm not saying that I've never been guilty of this, someone gets like a better paying job or someone gets a newer apartment or a nicer car. It shouldn't be competition. It should be inspiration. Like, it should be like, damn, bitch, look at you. You had that. I can get that too. And that's exactly what it should be. And you just get your own version of it. Girl code number 4, consistency. Rule is to show up when it matters. This doesn't mean that like you're available 24/7, and it definitely doesn't mean, you should expect someone to like, we all work. I don't expect someone to like stay up to the wee hours with me crying about, whatever it is I'm upset about. But, showing up when it matters is so important. Code number 5, affirmation. The rule, validating each other's feelings and experiences instead of diminishing or minimizing them. I will say, like, as a friend, this has been such an opportunity for me. I feel like when you care about someone, it doesn't really matter the type of relationship it is. Like, when you care for someone and when you genuinely want them to have the best or, be the best or whatever it may be, sometimes that can come across as aggressive energy. And so learning how to like style step around your friends and use words of affirmation and use like positive words to really get your point across and to validate what they're feeling in that moment it's a skill that I feel like takes time to develop, but I also feel like it makes the friendship so much better. Number 6, girl code, respecting boundaries. The rule, honoring each other's space and time and not taking limits personally. I definitely think that there's a rhythm in friendships, and I feel like recognizing the rhythm and knowing each other's patterns is so crucial. Girl code number 7, celebrating individual growth. I feel like this is an obvious one. In my opinion, this is an obvious one, but I don't think it's obvious to everyone. Make space for evolution. Like, people are allowed to change. People are allowed to have reactions. We don't all have to stay identical to remain friends. Like, we're allowed to evolve. And I feel like there is something to be said for celebrating that and like recognizing that like you have people in your life that are in a specific season. Like Alec, my close friend Alec, he is in a season right now that is like, so beautiful. He is coming off of so much that has gone on in his personal, romantic life. And he's like really trying to figure out like who he is and like the pillars of not only I feel like a romantic relationship, but also like just the core values for himself. And I'm able to recognize that he's in that era. And I think it is awesome. As frustrating or as selfish as it may be, I think that it is awesome. This is like, okay, so this is number 8, girl code. This is a big one. Okay. Honest communication. So say hard things with kindness and address the tension rather than letting it fucking fester. If you have something on your chest and it's causing you to have a little bit of an attitude, then you need to fucking say it. And another thing that pisses me off is when you are friends with someone, when you are like good ass friends with someone, and rather than share when they have a frustration or a concern, they let it rock and they let it go for like ever. And then one day they just explode on you and dump all this bullshit on you and then expect you to do what with it? Like, how can one person make a change if it's not brought to their attention? Number 9, girl code, emotional availability. The rule is be willing to be vulnerable and to hold vulnerability in return. This is I would say like this is one that I also struggle with. It is hard to be vulnerable. Just in general, I feel like it's difficult to be vulnerable, but I think it's also difficult to be vulnerable in friendships because then things have the potential, to get turned back around on you, which is never a good feeling. But I will say that I would rather be vulnerable than not. And I feel like there's something so beautiful to be said for having a vulnerable moment with a friend and being able to have like that bond with one another over it. I think that's really special. And I think that's something that like I always did when I was younger. That's why I wasn't able to bring everyone with me to where I'm at now. And obviously, same them with me, but there are friends that, trickle up. That maybe it's not all of your friends from your childhood, but there are still friends that are in your life that, have seen you in all these phases. And I think like there is a vulnerability in that. And that is what makes having girlfriends so essential. Girl code number 10, non-judgment zone. And the rule is friends can confess mistakes and bad choices and fears without being shamed. Listen, there's one thing about me, I'm going to shame you. Okay, no, I lied. I'm not going to shame you. But like I said, roasting someone is my fucking love language and I expect it in return. Listen, we're not perfect. And I think I keep saying that because I can't stress it enough. Just because someone shares with you like what's important to them, it doesn't mean that they don't ever fuck up. It doesn't mean that they don't ever make mistakes, and it's just having that grace for one another. So I think I would say like non-judgment zone, but also / grace, because it's so important to like allow people to fuck up. You guys, those are the 10 girl codes. And going through what I've gone through recently, I feel like those really sum up. Like, I feel like if you're missing like more than 3, or like you are less than 30% on more than 3, then like that's an issue. And I feel like I can say that just like based off of what I went through recently. So I'm so curious to hear what everyone has to say. So please DM me and let me know if you feel like I missed one, or if you disagree, or if you think I was like being too harsh. I always like to hear just a little bit of feedback. It's like sometimes you think you're being crazy, but you're really not. But then sometimes like you don't think you're being crazy and you kind of are. So I would say it's about 50-50 with me. So like, please DM me and tell me what you think. All right. So going into season 2, one thing I do want to keep are some segments, but I don't want to bring back into the DMs, even though this is kind of like that. It's just not focused around men. So with that being said, I think I've now said this 12 times. This is the messy mail segment. I was going through the DMs on the pod, and I was also going through my own DMs. Here's the thing is, I'm not saying that you should even ask for my advice. Okay. Don't quote me on this. Okay. And don't expect me to know it all, because I fucking don't. I just have a heavy, unfiltered opinion. Okay. Anyways, with that being said, I went through some of the DMs, and I found a really good question. Like someone just like chit chatting with us about stuff and like our podcast, like topics. This is from season 1. And there was a question that they asked, and I think we like gave like a pretty generic response, but I just wanted to share it, because now I can go a little bit more in depth about it. Right. So the DM said, so I've been casually dating a guy for like 2 months. It's fun. It's not super serious, but I do like him. She said, here's the problem. Before we met, I fucked one of his close friends, like more than once, more than twice. we were hooking up all the time. At the time, I didn't know they were even friends, but now that I do, every time we end up all in the same group setting, I feel like I'm sitting on a ticking time bomb. Do I come clean, or should I just keep it to myself since it happened before him? She said help because my anxiety is spiraling. Listen, this is one of the girl codes. I will say this. I think about like if it were me, right? And if it were me, I would want to know. Like I wouldn't want this to be like some untold thing, like unspoken thing between you and one of my good friends. Like I think that is probably even more inappropriate. The other side of that coin though, is that like it's also none of his business. So really it's up to you. I will say this though, if I think like you would want the same courtesy. So you should just let him know it is what it is. Now, where the problem comes in, if you ask me, is if he has a problem with the fact that you fucked his boy. Because although obviously like we all had it our way, like I don't think we'd be like, yeah, man, I wish I could find a girl who like fucked all my friends, or I wish I could find a guy who like fucked all my friends first. Like, no, of course. Like we're not out here looking for that shit. Okay. But I think there's something to be said for like recognizing that like we've all had a past, like we're not angels, like he's fucked other women, and I'm sure that your social circle is bigger than his. So at the end of the day, I don't think it should fucking matter. There's my little 2-piece, but don't quote me. That's gonna wrap up episode 1. I want to thank everyone for listening. If you guys have something to say about one of the girl codes that I mentioned earlier, then please DM me. I'd love to hear it. Thank you for listening. I so appreciate everyone tuning in. Episodes are still going to drop every Tuesday. So please check out Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Just whatever you do, don't quote me.